On behalf of the Victim and Witness Assistance Board, I'm honored to present the Access to Justice Award to Julie Dahlstrom. The Access to Justice Award recognizes a survivor, service provider, agency, or organization whose leadership and outreach efforts have made victims' rights and services more accessible or readily available to underserved populations. Julie is the director of the Immigrants' Rights and Human Trafficking Program at Boston University School of Law. She is an anti-trafficking leader focused on lifting survivors' voices and victims' rights. Julie's work on behalf of survivors is multifaceted. She advocates for survivors' rights in the courts and has pressed for needed changes or updates in the law. Recently, she helped steer toward passage the Certification for Victims of Violent Crime and Human Trafficking Bill, and she continues to advocate for the passage of the Equity Model Bill. Julie's work emphasizes the ideal of being trauma-informed and survivor-focused.
Thank you to DA Blodgett for this generous award. I also want to especially thank MOVA, Attorney General Maura Healey, and the Victim and Witness Assistance Board for this great recognition. And more than anything, I want to dedicate this award to my clients, my students, and my friend, Sherry Jimenez. I direct the BU Law Immigrants' Rights and Human Trafficking Program, and I have the privilege every day to work with survivors of labor and sex trafficking, survivors who should really be here in my place accepting this award. They've shown me what it looks like to fight for justice amidst the steepest of challenges. Every day they fight, despite fear of reprisal, of stigma, of deportation. They do battle amidst and against a system often not designed to work for them, for basic rights. And despite robust law on the books and strong moral condemnation of trafficking, the legal system often fails to believe survivors. It fails to provide them with criminal restitution or civil damages, and it remains a source of re-traumatization and exclusion, especially for survivors of color and LGBTQ survivors. And yet many of my clients and survivors continue to step forward. They continue to envision new solutions, and they continue to engage and connect with people like me to welcome us into this work. And I also dedicate this to my students. When I'm tired, when I'm burnt out, my law students fill me with endless optimism. We have a new generation of leaders ready to re-envision and strengthen victims' rights. They're skilled, they're thoughtful advocates, and yet they also understand systemic bias and how the legal system has disproportionately impacted communities of color and LGBTQ individuals. They understand the challenges, yet they're resolute in demanding more from our courts and more from our profession. And in that daring, they fuel and inspire me and us to do better. And finally, I want to thank Sherry Jimenez, a survivor herself who runs the EVA Center, a program for survivors of commercial sexual exploitation, who is also being honored by MOVA this year. When I started to do this work as a lawyer now 14 years ago, Sherry welcomed me into her office. She took the time, the years to teach me what it meant to show up for survivors. And I learned that survivors, for many reasons, don't reach out to lawyers. They don't call on legal services. She taught me to be patient, to be present, to listen. And over time, that if I was lucky, I could participate in the slow, positive momentum that brings with it the possibility of real change and real reform. So thank you to Sherry, and thank you to MOVA.